Welcome to Rich Your Soul, Brad Farris. It's great to have you join us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And I am excited to learn from you. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up? And how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I moved about every year or 2 years until I was in third grade. And then when we settled in California, I sort of feel like that's when growing up started. And my family had allowances, and you gave away 10% of your allowance and you saved 10% of your allowance, and then you could do whatever you wanted with the rest of your allowance. And early on, like in high school, my dad gave us a little bit of stock, and so we learned about investing and what that meant. I would say that school taught me nothing about money, which is disappointing, honestly. But my dad was a really good example of ways to think about money.
By the way, you know that wasn't the norm of how most kids are raised, that their
Yes.
parents actually taught them.
I do know that.
So what was it? Do you know what drove your parents to do that?
I don't know for sure. I mean, my father was a very rational person, and it drove him nuts when people made irrational decisions. And I think that he somehow understood that having a visceral experience with money would help us to learn a little bit. And it provided a lot of teaching moments when he, hey, Dad, I want a bike. And he'd say, great. What do you want to do to make some money to get a bike? And, so I mowed lawns, or I threw newspapers, or whatever it was, to do those things. And it wasn't that he couldn't afford us. It's that he wanted us to participate in it. And oftentimes when we'd get about halfway to our savings goal, he'd chip in the other half and we could do it. But it was more about being resourceful and thinking about what are our options for getting the thing that we wanted other than asking him for it.
I'm guessing you don't know his personality type, or he probably never took personality type tests.
No, probably
like
he didn't. That's right. I mean, he was an introvert, which I know that for sure. On a Myers-Briggs, he was probably a TJ, so an INTJ probably.
If I were to guess, you nailed it. I think, first of all, INTJs are about 2% of the population. I am one. I know it. And this is the way we think about stuff and do things. So it's like interesting how that comes to be. Very interesting. So you grew up, you learned about money, which is good. You learned about giving, saving, spending, how to earn, all of those types of things. So
I had a job from the time I was 13 or 14 all the way through college. A lot of summers, 2 summer jobs.
Okay. And so you went to college, you became an engineer, correct?
I did, yeah.
So very systems and logic driven, kind of
Yes.
like, the things that your dad was naturally talented
Yes,
at.
he was also an engineer, yes.
Okay. But then you shifted out and you went more towards the marketing and design side.
Yes.
What happened?
Management.
Like, what was that all about?
So the marketing people came and told me the thing that they wanted me to design, and I designed that thing that they wanted. And then it wasn't successful in the marketplace. And I was very frustrated by that. I did what they asked me to do, and it wasn't succeed. And I wanted to be successful. And so this is kind of the way engineers think about things. It's like, well, so now I have to do this guy's job too. And so I went and started hanging out with the marketing guys and figured out that in order to understand what they were talking about, I needed to understand finance. And so I took some accounting courses, and over time I became the nerd that spoke business, or the business guy that spoke nerd. And I was actually very fortunate. The company that I was a part of sort of went on an acquisition spree, and they needed someone to evaluate the technology in these businesses that we were buying. And so for a number of years, I went out and looked at these acquisition businesses and hung out with the folks who were in the corporate development group. And how do you value a business, and what is important when you go to buy a business? What do people care about? And that just gave me a whole different perspective on what was important in business.
Nerds who can speak are worth a lot of money.
Speak anything, right?
Yeah. I mean, the ability to communicate as
Yes.
an engineer is massive. And then you throw on top of that business skills, and now it all kind of comes together. So what did you do with all these great skills?
So we ended up buying a business that had 2 different divisions, and one of the divisions fit really well with our company, and the other one kind of no one knew what to do with. And so I put together a little plan about what I thought we should do with that other business. And the guys around the table kind of looked at each other and said, well, Brad, why don't you run it? because you seem to have an idea here. And I thought this was bananas. Like, this seemed like the craziest idea that anybody had ever had. But I thought, sure, I mean, they think I can do it. And so 33 years old, I was the general manager of this little $25 million manufacturing business. And holy cow, did I learn a lot. In the first 3 months, we had a wildcat strike. Half of the management team quit. Our third largest customer went bankrupt. And so then I moved all the manufacturing from Mexico, where the strike was, back to Texas. And it was just really a lot of fun, an incredible amount of work. But I ended up drawing together a new management team that really performed well. And we grew the business about 20% over the next couple of years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was a blast.
And then what happened?
Then the acquisition trend continued. And so they pulled me out of this into another business that they had bought. And so I worked with another management team there. And at this time, I was more like an outsider. Rather than being the general manager, I was like the consultant that was coming in to turn around this business that we had bought, and was able to do that. And the parent company sold both the business that I was the general manager at and the one that I helped turn around. And at that point, we were in 2000, 2001. And if you remember what was going on there, it was not a great time to buy businesses. We had the dot bomb going on. Interest rates were crazy. And so I bailed out and started a consultancy, kind of switching sides of the table. Instead of working for the capital, I went to work for the entrepreneurs to help them to grow their businesses.
And when you say you were helping them to grow their businesses, how are you doing that?
So most entrepreneurs are either good at sales and marketing or they're good at operations, and very few are good at both. And so I would help the people that were good at sales to shore up their operations, and the people that are good at operations to develop a sales plan. Helping people with operations is a lot easier than helping them with sales if the owner's not sales oriented. And so I did a lot more of the operations work. And over time, it was fun. I helped people grow their business. But the idea of consulting, of being kind of an outsider coming in, had some drawbacks for me. First of all, I came to the point where I realized that I wasn't always right. And so I was giving people advice that oftentimes worked, but it didn't always. And I wasn't really comfortable with that. And then also, there would be some owners who would argue with me. They wouldn't like my idea. And so then we'd be having, debates about the right way forward, which also I was like, well, you're paying me. Like, either let's do it or don't do it. But I don't want to be your sparring partner. That just didn't seem like a fun thing. So 2019, I pivoted from consulting to coaching, where now I can be on the same side of the table as the owner, regardless of what strategy they're choosing, and just helping them to be more effective and more aware and have more of their creative juices available to solve whatever problems there are that are in front of them.
And I'm guessing when you're on the same side and you're coaching, that you realize with some of these leaders, it's not the business, it's not the model, it's not the market, it's them and their inner state that's the bottleneck. So let's dig into this.
Yes.
What does that look like? And how do you know when that's the case?
Well, so the front page of my website says the reason your business isn't growing is you. Like 100% of the time, you are the reason that your business isn't growing. Now, the question is, what is going on there? And there are a number of different things that happen as the business grows. So when the business gets to around $1 million, $1.5 million, what made the business possible to get to $1 million was usually the hustle of the business owner. That whenever you start a business, you just got to drive it for a certain period of time to get it going so that you can hire people to help you. When you get to about $1 million, that hustle runs out of gas. Like, you just can't. If you're going to get to 2 million, could you hustle twice as hard? No, I'm all hustle. So there's a mindset shift around that $1 million to 2 million that goes from being the one who's doing the thing to helping other people do the thing. And helping people make that mindset shift is one thing that I run into pretty often. Then as the business gets larger, you're going to start hiring better people who have better skills than you, people who are maybe even smarter than you. And so learning to be okay with other people being the star, other people being the center of attention. There's an ego thing that happens there that is about allowing other people to succeed. And that's another way that we get in our own.
I've always said business ownership is a self-development journey.
Unbelievable. It's the best one. Really expensive too.
It depends if you're willing to listen and if you're willing to look in the mirror and you're willing to make a change. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can learn from other people's mistakes.
That
It
is
just
true.
seems that people prefer to learn from their own mistakes, or they like to follow a guru who's made the same mistake they've
Mm,
made. And
mm.
they don't realize if that person made a mistake, there's a good chance they're making more. And so it might be smarter to follow somebody who's wise, who knows how to avoid the mistakes instead of following people, who made the same mistake you made and kind of go on that path.
One of the things that my father used to say is anybody can make a mistake, but to really screw things up requires a team. And it's that it is the business owner is what creates the mess in every business because you're in charge. You hire the people, you train them, you're leading them, you're giving them their reviews. So ultimately the mess inside the business is coming from you. And the problem with the guru is that around you is also a group of people who have their own mess, and untangling all of that is unique to what you've created. There's no 7-step formula that's going to figure that out.
No, there's not. One of the things I saw you say, and I found it quite interesting, owners should spend their time on the top 10% and the bottom 10%.
Yes, right.
And well, first, let's define why that's the case, because I don't think people think that way.
So when we hire people onto our team, we're asking them to take on some of our work. And so we start by giving them the most routine, repetitive sorts of tasks. And so over time, the middle part of the distribution, the fat part of the pipe, is pretty easy to delegate. But the biggest deals, which make the biggest impact on your business, those are often outside of what you can delegate easily. And they really require the kind of experience and judgment that you've developed over time. And then similarly, the bottom 10%, the stuff that is annoying and keeps coming up over and over again, and just we keep making this mistake. Obviously, there's something beyond the system that you've taught everyone else that's causing this stuff down on the bottom. And so again, that's where your judgment and experience can create a lot of leverage. And so if you've trained your team properly, they should be able to handle that 80% in the middle. And so you can make the biggest difference by focusing on that big stuff and the little stuff.
It's funny because when we were doing the real estate business, for me, it was like, call me when there's a problem you can't fix.
Right.
So it was usually when they were stuck. Now, they weren't calling me for the basic stuff. If they were, that would drive me crazy. I expect them to know how to do the basics. But when you got stuck, I'll help you figure it out to get you moving. Or to me, the top 10% is the strategy, the vision, the creation of kind of where things are going. But maybe I have that wrong. But that's kind of the way I look at it is, where did we screw up, or where is the system not working? And then what's the vision for where we're going?
I apologize, Rocky. My headphones have just cut out, and I need to figure out how to get them back here. Yes, that's exactly right. The job of the leader as the business grows is to get out of the service delivery, to not be part of the thing that the business does in order to make money. And instead, your role is to create the systems and hire the people who do the thing that the business does to make money. And so we become someone who's resourcing and creating that system in which other people can succeed. And the more that we can do that, the more that we can get out of the way and get our team doing the thing that helps the company to make money. Now we've unleashed a level of growth that couldn't happen when we were involved in the process.
And that makes sense. And you've got to figure out those parts and keep it all moving and being able to keep your hand on the pulse.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, a lot of people feel like they have to be in it to keep their hand on the pulse, but that's what reporting is for. That your team can create reports so that you can keep track of everything that's going on. You don't have to sign every check. You don't have to send out every invoice. You can get reports that show you that so that other people can do that stuff for you.
Okay, now you're scaring me because reports sound like this big, long thing I have to read and people have to. To me, I like the concept of a dashboard.
Yes,
or
I do too.
Flow chart. Like, did this step get done? Yes or no? Not like pages of reading. Is that what
Totally
you meant?
agree.
Or
yes.
Okay. I just
what I usually What I usually tell people is when you wake up in the middle of the night and you think, oh my gosh, did they do that thing? I want you to have a place where you can go and make sure that that thing got done. And pretty soon you won't wake up in the middle of the night wondering those things anymore. You'll just know. And that's where the dashboard just keeps you up to date on the results of those things that are getting done.
Now, my biggest thing with that is trust, but verify.
Yes, 100%.
Now, sometimes business owners tell me they can't get their people to follow the system.
Hmm.
So what do you do?
That seems to me like a performance problem. Do you agree?
Or a mirror problem.
Well, certainly the business owner is the one who never follows the system, right? And when I was in consulting, one of the things that I would say all the time is, I'm going to design a system that's different from the one that you use because no one can do it the way you did it. Because you have all this implicit knowledge, all this stuff that is sort of in your gut, and we need to design something that someone can do without all of that. But if once we've designed an appropriate system, if people aren't following it, then we have a conversation where we say, I see a problem here. Do you see that we have a problem? What should we do about that problem?
And this is where I think a lot of business owners get stuck.
Yes.
Of accountability, of holding people accountable and setting that as the way things are done and making the cut when it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. And and I can send you a link to this, Rocky, if you want to put it in show notes. There's a really simple 5-step process where you just walk through 5 different questions. And if at any point the person on the other side responds no to one of these questions, then you know you need to make a change. And you don't necessarily have to make a change today. You want to make it on the day that's right for you, but soon that person's not going to be working here anymore. And it's done in a way where they're making the choice, where they're deciding, no, I don't want to make the change that you're asking me to change. Okay, great. Now we're clear. You don't want to make the change. The change is going to be required for you to work here, but that's okay. We'll find someone else.
I like the simplicity of it. And that's what you kind of have to do is have those types of things and make it easy. Part of what you talk about is getting into flow state. And I'd love for you to define flow state. But one of the things you talk about is doing more of what you love and less of what you don't. And we always have an exercise we like to take people through, which is, the loves and trains. Actually, I'm in the midst of doing it myself. I'm like, what are the things that I was doing that I no longer want to do and get off my plate entirely? So I'm in the midst of this myself. But even with the loves and hates, that still seems like not the perfect flow state, but maybe I have a different definition of flow state.
Well, there's 2 levels there that you're talking about. One is getting rid of the things that are taking energy away from you. And one thing that it took me a while to figure out is that there are things that I'm really good at and that over time I used to really enjoy, but that I don't really enjoy anymore. And so I used to be the spreadsheet king. I could make really amazing Hall of Fame level spreadsheets. And then I got some people to help me to make those spreadsheets, and I would work with them so that they were doing most of the work and I was kind of directing it. But even that over time got tedious to me and it wasn't work that I wanted to do. And so recognizing that there are things that you can be good at and that you enjoyed at a certain time, but that are just not something that is giving you reward back anymore. They aren't something that you love. And the more time that you spend doing those things that you're good at, but that you don't enjoy, that's how you get into burnout. That's a drain on your energy over time. And so focusing more of your time on the things that you do enjoy. And by enjoy, I don't mean I get the giggles out of it. It's the things that you could do for a long period of time and hours go by and it feels like minutes. It doesn't feel like work. It's something that you're really engaged with and enjoy. And so you've got the loves and hates. I do an energy audit. There are lots of tools that we can use to help you to decide which of these things are draining your energy and which of them are giving you energy.
And that's the key. And being okay letting go and taking the time to think through that. Do you think do people just not take the time to think through it, or do they just ignore what they don't want to do and hope it solves itself?
Man, that's so complicated. I think the first part, the not taking the time means having some time to reflect. And time to reflect means that you're not in a meeting, working on something, getting something off your to-do list. It means scheduling time that's open on your calendar when you can actively look at, well, what's working for me and what's not? And I think a lot of people just avoid having that conversation with themselves. And part of it is it might ask you to change your identity of who you're thinking about yourself. There was a time when I loved spreadsheets and analytics and creating analytical answers to things. really was rewarding to me. And when I looked at taking that off my plate, it left me with this big hole of like, well, what am I good at? And what am I going to spend my time in? And facing that fear of, well, am I just giving up things and there's nothing new that's going to come on my plate, and taking the time to look at, but what am I enjoying, and what am I getting reward out of, and where am I adding more value than I used to by doing spreadsheets? Like, that can be a little bit of a disconcerting and even scary process for people.
Why is it scary?
Change.
Is it just
It
the
means
change part?
seeing yourself differently. Am I going to be good at? I know I'm good at spreadsheets. Am I going to be good at this new thing? I have to learn new things. I have to challenge myself. I have to grow. Maybe it's just safer to keep doing the spreadsheets. But doing the spreadsheets make me feel dead inside. And so I see people kind of go through this loop over and over again where, like, okay, I need to change, but change is scary, and I don't know if it's going to work. So I'm just going to keep doing the thing, but I hate that thing. And that thought, that circle kind of goes around.
Why is change scary for people? Because we're living in a time that change
Bingo.
is going to be faster than it's ever been in history. Either you get comfortable with change or it's over.
Change is coming. I mean, that I love the way you just put that, Rocky, because whether we like it or not, things are changing. And so resisting change is just not a successful strategy at this point. Embracing change, looking for new ways to do things. I think for some people, there's a reframing there where it feels like, well, I'm being forced to change, and so therefore I have to resist it with instead of choosing to change and being okay with the change, and looking for what is good there. Like, what does this make possible? That's a question I ask a lot of times.
And that's a good one. Do you have a process or a way that you do this? Do you do it on a routine basis? Like, how does that all come to be?
I do like to have regular reflection time. And so in my own life, I do a weekly review. It takes me 20 minutes. There's a set of like 6 or 8 questions that I ask myself every single week. And the repetition of those questions helps me see trends over time. And then once a month, I take a whole day away where I am not in the office, I'm not available to my family, and I'm looking at bigger questions for myself. Like, okay, I see this trend. What does it mean? What do I want to do about that? Well, and then I can take some time to feel the feelings that I have. Okay, that's scary, or man, that's frustrating, or I don't want to do this, and figuring out why I don't want to do it. And so having a regular time that's built into my schedule means that I'm doing that work on a continuous basis.
Do you get a way to do that? Do you have to change your environment? Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah. I actually, there's a monastery not far from me where they'll feed me and put me up at night. And it's got a nice lake that I can go for a big walk around. And so I go up there, I spend the night, Thursday night, and then I spend all day Friday walking and thinking and reviewing and doing the work that I need to do.
Do you have a good way to capture those reflections? Because I still struggle with that.
Ooh, it's an interesting question. I mean, journaling is the obvious one. I'm not a great journaler.
But when you're walking around,
well,
and then when you have to go back and review it.
So there's 2 things. I can do a voice note, and that will sometimes capture things. But when I'm on my retreat day, when I'm out for a walk, I usually don't take my phone with me, and I trust that I'm not going to forget. Like, these things are important enough to me, and I'm giving myself the time that when I get back to my room that I can write them down. And that works pretty well. I'm very rarely like, what was that thing? Because I'm taking the time to really integrate a bunch of thoughts that have been hanging around for a while.
And then you actually take action on them.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you find most people take action on things like that?
Most people. I don't know how to define that. I would say one of the things that I do with my coach and that I do with clients is review those kind of reflections and say, well, what do we want to do about that? And in my own life, I've said to my coach, I don't want to do anything with that. And then a month later, I'm like, I still don't want to do anything with that. And then a month later, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do something with that. And that's okay. Like, sometimes it takes time to get over that resistance. But that's why the regularity of the reflection is important, because it keeps coming back up in front of me.
Were there some big beliefs you had to let go of?
Well, for sure. Oh my gosh. I keep a card on my desk here. It's a quote from Steve Chandler. It says, you can accomplish your goal in a very relaxed, slow, and fun way. And the first time I read that quote, I was like, you got to be kidding me. No, you got to work really hard. It takes effort. It takes urgency. You got to work on it every single day. But that's not true. That was a big mindset that I had to shift, that there is a relaxed, slow, and fun way to reach my goals. And that's unlocked a ton of things for me. Another one, if we're going to talk about that, a few years ago, I bought a bunch of fake money, prop money, because I was nervous around money. Like money made me itchy. If I had a bunch of money in my bank account, I noticed I would spend it, or I would try to hide it from myself. Like I would go invest it in something, or and just having money around made me anxious. And so I bought a bunch of fake money and just piled like $40,000 on my desk just so I could get used to being with money and not having these weird reactions when there was money around.
It's surprising you say that because your dad taught you about money as a kid. So where did that come from?
So I have 5 kids, and when my kids were young, it always felt like we didn't have enough. And I think I lived in a scarcity mentality during that. Not just about money. We didn't have enough time. We didn't have enough space. We didn't have enough clothes. Like everything felt scarce. And so I got into that scarcity mindset, I think, during that.
Okay. Yeah, because it didn't sound like you're up. Because I ask my clients that same question because for the same reason that you just talked about, if I've got a business owner that's uncomfortable with money, they're going to blow it.
Exactly. You're not going to have it.
You're not going to have it.
Right.
And so it's always interesting to know that and to kind of figure out how you keep that. That's interesting.
It's an exercise I've done with clients too, where I will send them a bunch of fake money. And I don't tell them. I just send them. I say, I'm gonna send you a package, and they open it up, and there's $20,000 in cash in there, and they're like freaking out. And then they read the note, and I say, but this is fake. It's not real money. And then I ask them immediately after that sentence, like, what did you notice about how you changed your attitude toward this pile of paper? Because real money is fake also. The only reason real money has value is because we all agreed to it, right? There's no difference. The difference is how you felt about it in your mind. And so just having it around makes you like when I first piled all this cash on my desk, I was like, what if someone sees it through the window and they come in and steal my fake money? Like, do I need a safe for my fake money? You're laughing, but it's ridiculous, right? It was $12 worth of money, but I was worried about somebody stealing it. Like, all of those thoughts were really interesting for me to watch.
And when you say fake money, it looked like real money, but it was fake. It's not like Monopoly money that looks fake.
It looks like absolutely real cash.
Wow, that's really good.
It's prop money. It's what they use in the movies. And if you look really close on it, it says for motion picture use only. But other than that, it looks like the real thing.
Okay.
I keep a box of it back here.
So when you sent it to clients, what were the reactions that you used to get?
One of my clients lives in Mexico City, and when she opened it, her husband's like, who are you doing business with? Because you can't do business with those kind of people that are sending you cash. And, it's also interesting to hear how people's spouses react to it. But they all have a very visceral reaction. And like what I tell them in the thing is like, put it underneath your monitor and have it just sit there every day. And people get uncomfortable. Like, what if someone comes in and they see $10,000 sitting there? Like, what if they do? But, and so it's a mirror that helps us to think about how we're feeling about money all the time.
Maybe I should start doing that.
I'll send you some if you want.
I'm sure I can order it on Amazon.
You can. Right? Propmoney.com.
Okay.
I don't have an affiliate code. Just go to propmoney.com. That's where the good stuff is.
I will look and see where the good stuff is. You mentioned Steve Chandler, and I was turning around because I have a bunch of his books.
Oh my gosh, I love his books.
Steve learned from Hardison, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, Hardison retired recently. He doesn't do his magic sessions anymore.
Same with Chandler also.
I figured, I never really knew that Chandler was that active other than writing more so versus the other stuff. I got introduced to them all through Rich Litvin, who he wrote The Prosperous Coach Between.
Yes.
And I know Rich does a lot of stuff. It's funny how you look at certain industries and you see how everything ties back to a handful of people.
Yes, very much.
You see it in music, you see it in the movies, you see it in, if you talk about software, it becomes Bill Gates or, you know how it is. And it's interesting how that comes to be. What were some of the things that you learned from Steve that helped you to improve?
Wow. Well, Time Warrior is one of his early books. And if you read it now, it feels probably a little dated, but it was all about being in control of your time and really making better decisions about what you were saying yes to and what you were saying no to. And when I work with a new client, one of the things we do in one of the first sessions is we open up their calendar and look at what they're saying yes to. And do you want to say yes to all these things? Are you just doing it to please people, or are you doing it because this is where you need to be and how you're making your money? Oftentimes we wipe out half the things on somebody's calendar in that meeting, and it just changes their lives. That was a really great book. Reinventing Yourself is another one that I really like. And that one's about mindset, about how problems occur in our heads, in our thoughts, and that our thoughts control our lives. And if we can be in control of our thoughts, then we can be in control of our lives.
Yeah, controlling thought is a very difficult thing. We'll get to that in a second. I've always said, show me your calendar, show me your bank statement.
Oh my gosh.
And I can tell you everything about you,
Yep.
because that is where your time and money go is super clear. I do a time audit every quarter.
Mm.
And I look back at my time over the last 3 months,
Mhm.
and going into it, always say, I don't have enough time. And then I go back to my last 3 months and I go, the hell'd you waste all that time on? Because there's all this open space. There were no appointments. There was no this. There was no that. And then that helps me go, okay, I guess it wasn't that big a deal.
Well, and just to be clear, the point of the calendar audit is to make more free space, not to fill the free space. Like, we need time to think, especially if you're a leader. Your thinking time is your most valuable time. And so if you have problems in front of you that require creative and innovative solutions, you need empty spots on your calendar to spend time bringing that innovation and thought into creating new opportunities for yourself and your business. So the point of the time audit is actually to open up time so that you can spend it on the things that are most important, not spend it on, filing the TPS report or whatever it is.
No, I totally understand that. And I agree. My thing is to look at where did my time go,
Yeah.
and then ask myself, am I okay with that? Is that in
Yes.
line with what
Yes.
my expectations were?
Yes.
The other thing I love, and we haven't talked about it in a while, is the 12-week year.
I love that book too.
And so the 12-week year is based on a principle called Parkinson's Law. And Parkinson's Law is also the underpinning of Profit First, which we'll talk about later. It basically says you will use up all the time and money allocated. So whatever time and money you give to something, it's going to get spent. It's going to get used up. And when you control it, it's amazing how much gets done in the last minute. You can get lots of stuff done in the last minute if you choose to.
Absolutely.
And so that's a big part of it, is learning how to do that and getting comfortable with it.
The other thing that
taking the time to plan out your next 12.
The other thing that I got out of the 12-week year is that when we make annual goals, we naturally kind of say, well, I'm not going to reach that goal until the end of the year. But why? Why not get that goal done in 2 months or 3 months? And just thinking differently about, why am I putting up all these barriers? Why am I assuming there's all these steps that I have to jump through to make that goal? What can I do to be in that state of mind now so that I can reach that goal more quickly? That was a really powerful idea that came from
it. Is. And I think, are you familiar with Darren Hardy?
No.
Darren Hardy wrote Who Not How.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Actually, that's Darren Hardy, I think.
It's Hardy is his last name. I don't remember his first name, but
yeah. His new book is Scaling. And in the Scaling book, it is literally about compressing time. He does speak a lot about pressing time, and that's a big part of it. And if you can't do that, then you waste it all. So yeah, these are all practices. And again, the 12-week year first of all, every quarter is 13 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it's called a 12-week year is because you spend an entire week planning the other 12. And so you've got to put it on your calendar. You got to do the work. You can't fill it in with other stuff that comes up and ignore it and all that stuff. And again, whether you do it once a month, that and so forth. So I think we had left off with, was that the voices in your head and trying to change those?
Yes.
So how do you do that? Because that's not easy.
Well, for many people, the voices in their head is that inner critic, that negative voice that's kind of picking on people. And when I'm working with clients about that, I try to slow them down a little bit and say, whose voice is that? Who's talking to you in that way? Because when you listen to that inner critic voice, you would never talk to your best friend that way. And actually, if your best friend talked to you like that, you wouldn't tolerate it. But there's someone that has a place in your head where they get to say those things and you're not offended by it. And when we talk about it, oftentimes it's a little child voice. It's not a grown-up voice. And that voice is someone some point in our lives we were disappointed or we failed at something, and at that point we decided we're not going to get in that situation again. We're going to try to protect ourselves from doing that. And so this inner critic is really a conservative voice that's trying to protect you from the risks that you took at a certain point and that weren't successful. And so understanding where that voice is coming from and allowing yourself to be thankful. I mean, that voice really saved me from a lot of lousy stuff. But I don't necessarily need that voice to tell me those things anymore. I am a grown-up now, and I can make these decisions. And so to go through a process of being thankful for that voice, and then when you recognize it, I have one client, the way he does it is he says, hey, I really want to hear what you have to say, but I'm in the middle of something right now. So if you could just sit over here on the side, I'll come back to you in just a minute. And when he finishes his task, he turns back to that voice, and it's almost never there. And so just giving yourself a little break, giving yourself a little separation from that voice where it's not so deep in your head and always in your ear can allow you then to make some different choices.
And it's interesting. If you step away for a moment, it disappears.
Yeah.
Only to have 10 more voices coming in, right?
Sure. But when we fight them, when we put our energy into saying, no, I'm not going to do that thing, right? That just gives energy to that voice, right? And we're putting energy into this thing that we don't want. But if instead we can say, hey, I'm so glad that you're here. You've done such a good job taking care of me. I just need to pay attention to this other thing for a minute and just go back to doing the thing that you were doing. And oftentimes that's all that voice needs, is to be acknowledged.
And I think that's true of all things in life. Instead of fighting them when you dance with them,
yeah,
they lose their energy and they disappear.
Yeah.
So one of the things with growth, scaling, all of these different things is we have to get comfortable with uncertainty.
Yes.
And that's a difficult one. So how have you been able to get comfortable with uncertainty?
So this is actually a really a topic that I talk a lot with clients about, is that problems occur in the future. We often see problems out on the horizon. Oh, if I do this thing, then this thing's going to happen, and then this thing's going to happen, and then, I'm going to be living in a cardboard box under a bridge or something like that. So problems often exist in the future, and the uncertainty is also in the future, right? Things are going to change. AI is going to take everyone's job away, whatever it is. If instead of spending time out in the future, we spend more of our time and energy in the present, we almost always have all the resources that we need to meet the requirements of the present. If we focus on the things that we need to do now and do those really, really well, then we're going to find that the future isn't quite as scary. We have more agency. We have more efficacy. And so we aren't the victim of these things that are out there in the future, but in the present moment, we can do the things that we need to do. And if there's some change we need to make, great. What is the smallest change that we need to that we could institute today that would put us in a better situation in that future state? And if I just focus on making little changes every day, then those scary things almost never happen. And so staying away from all of the news and the things that are telling you all the disasters that are coming, and instead just focusing on today, what do I need to do to be successful? And then tomorrow, what do I need to do to be successful? An amazing amount of control and agency comes from just focusing in the present.
The other thing is, if I leave California and I'm headed to New York, and I just shift by a few degrees, I can end up in Florida.
That's right.
And so if you make changes early enough, it really doesn't require a lot of work. It's little stuff consistently done that over time does super, super well.
The other thing that I think is interesting is that I work with a lot of clients that are telling me, for sure, I want to go to New York. Definitely New York is where I want to end up. And they get to Nevada and they're like, yeah, New York, I don't know if that is where I want to. Maybe I want to go to Washington, D.C. And so then they shift a little bit south and then they get to, Missouri and they're like, yeah, Washington, D.C. Maybe it's Georgia. And over time, their goals shift. And that's fine. That's totally fine. Because as we make more decisions, we get more information. And we learn that thing that we were so sure of, maybe it's not the thing anymore. And that's fine.
Well, I think a lot of people want something because they see somebody else have it.
Yeah.
And they don't actually take the time to realize that what I want, does that work for me? And to actually understand the reality of what it is to decide, is that really what I do want or not? And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times people might struggle with that.
When we see what other people are doing, we often only see the good parts and don't think about the bad parts, because that's what they're showing us. They're showing us all the good parts. And in order to actually have that thing, we have to do the bad parts too. And maybe we don't want that. And that's, again, you can decide whatever you want. You don't have to have that thing. You could have some other thing. It's totally fine.
And that's true. And they also have to, yeah, they have to decide, is that what they really want? And are
Mhm.
they willing to do the work and make the sacrifices to get it?
Right.
Because otherwise you're not going to get it.
That's
And
right.
so you have to be realistic with it and be clear on how that's going to come to be. So we mentioned Profit First earlier. You use
Yes,
Profit First, and
I do.
maybe it helped you with your money issues that you talked about earlier.
It
I
did
don't
in
know.
a certain way. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, for many, many years, I was someone who did an annual budget. I had my whole income statement. I would budget every line of the income statement, and I would try to control all of these variables to make my budget work. And that was a lot of overhead. A lot of work went into doing that. And at a certain point, I looked back and I thought, I don't know that I'm getting the value out of this that I thought I was getting. And someone introduced me to Profit First. And the first time I looked at it, I thought, wait, I need to open 7 bank accounts? That's dumb. I'm not going to do that. I just kind of rejected it out of hand. And then I met a client who was using it, and his life was so simple and he had so much clarity about his finances. And I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a try, and went ahead and switched over to Profit First. And since then, I just spend, I don't know, 80% less time on my finances and have more money in the bank at the end of the month. Like, it's kind of a win-win for me.
It is. And it makes life easier, and it gives you clarity, and you don't have to spend so much time fussing on it. The other thing you have, though, is you have a CFO to help you too.
I have, yes. Yeah. And with clients particularly, what I tell them is that the day that they hire a financial professional is the day their life gets a lot better. Because for most entrepreneurs, accounting and finance is not, it's not one of those things that gives them energy, right? It's the thing that drains them energy. And so many of my clients are like, oh, it's okay. I just spend half a day on Saturday and I get all my finances done. I'm like, what? Why would you give up half of every Saturday to do that? Whereas a financial professional is going to get it done much more quickly with more accuracy, and you're going to have the confidence that you need to make decisions without having to spend all that time doing the transaction.
Well, so there's a couple different things. There's the mechanics of finance. And so
Yes.
if they're spending half their day on Saturday, that's the mechanics of finance.
Exactly, 100%, right.
But
they believe, the belief that they have is that by doing the mechanics, they're going to understand it. Like,
no. So I can do any part of it. Like, I can do
Yes.
the mechanics of the bookkeeping. I can do the tax return. When I'm in the weeds, I can't see the
Exactly.
forest.
Exactly.
And on top of that, there is no good set standard for bookkeeping. And so everyone kind of does it their way. And more often than not, their way doesn't. It might create a set of reports that's perfect for your accountant and taxes, but it doesn't create data that allows you to drive forward your company in the way that you want to go. It doesn't give you management perspective of, can I do this? Should I do that? Does this market make sense? And all of that. And so people really need to get clarity on that. That's not 4 hours on a Saturday doing the mechanics.
And in fact, it's much easier when your financial professional brings you a set of reports and says, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Do you know where this is coming from? And you can have an executive conversation about, you have less cash than you have this month, and that trend has been going on for a couple of months. I'm not seeing that your accounts receivable is growing. What's happening here? And start to think about, what are the business decisions that you're making that are driving those results.
All right, Brad, I usually have to answer the questions for you. I'm like, you spent 10 grand last month in this category. What was that? They go, I don't know. I go, hang on, let me look for you.
Yeah,
It was this. And then I'm like, by the way, did you know that you took $200,000 out of the business this year? What do you mean? I didn't take that. I'm like, well, here's the list. They're like, yeah, I paid taxes. I did this.
Yeah.
There was that. I bought this.
I charged my dry cleaning to the business.
Yeah. So more often than not, I have to show them what's going on, because they just glaze over when it comes to bees. And that's okay. It's all good. We each, as you said, you used to love spreadsheets. We each have our skills and the things.
Exactly.
that we love doing. And that goes back to where we started the conversation about the loves and the drains and spending your time on the parts that you love. Now, that doesn't mean you abdicate responsibility, because if you abdicate financial responsibility, there's a good chance there'll be money leaks that are not legal or forgetful.
Right.
I'm still
right.
paying for that software. I haven't
That's right.
used that. That was a trial. Why
Right.
are they still billing me? Because, so all of those types of things. Or the contract price got doubled and you never knew it. Or you're using software that got replaced by software that got replaced by software. And those 7 employees left, but we're still paying for their software that we never use anymore. So all of that happens. It's normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Ooh, time. I can always make more money, but I can't make more time. And like you said about work filling all the time that we give it, I just every year restrict my work hours a little bit more. I want to make more money in less time because there are other things I want to do besides work.
And I'm a big fan of constraining time and putting barriers around it, because
Yep.
I, like you, my work has never been, it's always been less than the norm of what most people do. And that's the way it will always be. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
We talked about this a little earlier, that it takes a team to really screw things up. It also takes a team to succeed. And almost every problem in a business is a people problem. And so I could make the best systems, I could create the best spreadsheets, but unless the people were aligned with what we wanted to do, unless we understood the motivations that those people had, it wasn't going to come out the way we wanted it to. And so focusing on the people has been something that I've done just more and more and more as my career has gone on.
We always talk about hire to values. You can always teach skills.
That's right.
It's hard to teach values. If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
You can do it. I think that humans in general put way too many restrictions or barriers on what they can accomplish. And, I'm not like, you can be an astronaut. I mean, maybe you can, maybe you can't. But if that's what you're interested in, move toward it. Moving toward it is going to open up more opportunities. You're going to see more things that you can do. You're going to find more ways to scratch that itch. And so don't sit around waiting for things to happen. Take action.
And that is the key. Take action and keep taking action, because when you're 18, it compounds massively.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
As long as you keep showing up and doing it.
That's right. That's right.
If people would like to learn more about you and connect, and I also think you've got an assessment you might be able to help people with so that they can figure some of this stuff out. Why don't you go ahead and share that?
If you go to anchoradvisors.com, ANCHORADVISORS, what you're going to find there is me. There's going to be a nice picture of me at the top. You scroll down, there's a growth phase assessment there, which helps you to evaluate where you are in the process of growing your business. So we talked about those barriers that people run into at around $1 million to $2 million, and then another one at maybe around $4 to $6 million. This helps you to see where you are in that process and can identify what the next steps are that you need to take. You can take the assessment and get the results without even giving me your email address. Just drop by and check it out and see where you are.
And I think that's a big thing. Each phase of business has their own obstacles and their own things. Right. And I think a lot of business owners don't realize that. And then they all think that they're unique unicorns, which they're not. We all go through the same problems.
We do. We do.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
It was great to be here, Rocky. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for checking out the full unedited video of the Richer Soul podcast. You can get the full audio podcast with intro, outro, and a ton more details here on YouTube or whatever your favorite podcast player is. Don't forget, we've got hundreds of episodes for you to go back through, and you can also get episode information on the Richer Soul website as well. Don't forget to subscribe so you're automatically updated as to what's going on and every time we release a new episode. The first few episodes of the Richer Soul podcast actually lay out the entire framework that everything is built on over all of these years. So check them out as well. Thanks for listening.